Well, it looks like we're going to be jumping right into the game, so we'll see if they are going to utilize that strategy that you were talking about. And this is the pistol round, and it looks like the attacking side here, which again, if you're just joining us, is going to be Gen.G. The play is B. They are kind of maneuvering there, trying to get some intel. No action quite yet, though, and the hot hands comes out and some blind firing through the smoke, but nothing really finding its home, and it sounds like we're going to get the spike planted here without any bodies falling, so it's going to be a 5v5 retake scenario.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was just talking about, seeing out of Gen.G, where we have that Sage on the table. They quickly push onto B. They're looking to lock out the A side, and they can play towards the other, but it looks like the angle hold isn't going to be that solid as Drone comes in and drops a 3K with the Ghost.
Wardell also getting a kill there at the end. He had one with the shorty on the swing earlier as well, so as they wait for the incendiary on the ground there to fade away, they will get this defuse, and this is going to be a first round going over to TSM. And I liked the execution from Gen.G, but TSM just simply won the pistol round. They won the gunfights. They had really good swings there, specifically through the angle.
Yeah, I think the intent was there for Gen.G. This is exactly what I want to see out of them in future rounds in terms of strategy. The execution was just a little bit off, and I think even that isn't necessarily fair. I don't think Gen.G's execution was off. I think Drones was so on that they just had no answer for it.
Well, now after a flawless round to start for TSM, things are going to be a bit more uphill for Gen.G. Typically, after you lose the pistol round, things are more difficult as your opponents have an edge in that early buy, and the play now appears to be Garage as they enter in this close quarters, but Subroza with the SMG is going to make short work of MkaeL. And Subroza also takes out another, makes that 3-4, really popping off before Hazed finishes it off. And again, easy because of the arms differential there, but Subroza just a monster with that Spectre.
Yeah, definitely not what you want to see if you're Gen.G there. You choose to push a close angle into Garage, and it's absolutely punished. You walk headlong into Subroza with an SMG, and he just gets to unload literally his entire clip, landing on targets. The only reason he doesn't drop the ace there is he literally ran out of the bullets to do it with, but we see Hazed trade him out, putting a second on the board for TSM.
On the side of Gen.G, we have a full buy now, and on the opposing side, not quite full buys as a couple of players decided to keep the SMGs. Wardell does have that operator ready to use it. Small shields was the sacrifice in order to get it online, but I think he's comfortable with that because we know he is lethal. He loves to take these early picks, likes to play this B area, and as a result, it looks like Gen.G is going to stay away.
Yeah, Gen.G playing a really slow sort of passive default here, and it looks like they're finally going to lean a little bit towards A. One of the things that I wanted to segue to based off of what we're looking at in the strat rat is that while yesterday we saw both teams running Omen, they both transitioned over to Brimstone here. What that signals to me is that Gen.G realizes that they need to double down on their offense and they need a lot more explosiveness to their executes, and that's why we're seeing Brimstone. Obviously, Sky Smoke's allowing for the most explosive smokes to go down for an execute, and we'll see how that pans out for them as they'll likely have to utilize it here.
So this is the push into A, but Wardell with a double before being answered by player one here, and that's still going to hopefully buy enough time for the rest of TSM to rotate over. Cutler there taking out GMD. The spike is planted, but there's still a numbers advantage in favor of TSM, even after MkaeL picks off Drone, but he does find Subroza as well, and now we have a 2v2. Hazed uses that Spectre to take down player one, and they're going to be advancing on Cutler with the pick, and this will be another defuse. I liked the execution there, but again, this is TSM defending.
This is starting to look dicey in a hurry. Gen.G obviously finding the majority of their success when we saw them play yesterday on the offensive side against TSM. The fact that they haven't shown much gas in the tank, much steam in the engine at this point is a little bit concerning, and we really want to see them picking up the pace.
Wardell there really, I think, helped kick things off by getting that double before falling. I think typically with that operator, if the first pick happens, you have to get the initial trade frag. You can't let him reload, take another shot. So we're going to see if he can get another early pick. It looks like he's going to be playing Garage this time around. And meanwhile, it's a spread kind of default look from Gen.G. And there's the pick. Just like I said, Wardell looking for those early trades, and that gives you a massive numbers advantage. First blood is huge in Valorant.
Yeah, this is really Wardell's trademark, where he's phenomenal on this map in terms of rotational play, seemingly always being exactly where he needs to be to find those opening picks. And it looks like Gen.G's going to be pushing headlong into him here. And Drone picks up the 3K, spraying down. Gen.G just not being able to find any way into any site, it seems, at least as of now.
I'm glad you mentioned the fact that Wardell has this kind of intuition for being where players are going to be. The thing that I really like about TSM and their positioning of Wardell and the operator is that they don't pick the same place. They try to go with this level of unpredictability so that you can't just say, all right, we know Wardell's going to be C long, let's avoid that. We know he's going to be B main. He picks different angles every time to try to catch you by surprise, give them that early numbers advantage. And this time around, it looks like, again, a bit of a split kind of default start from Gen.G as they try to get some information. And this is going to be an aggressive push up on the side of TSM and A. Two players laying in wait there in case anybody comes through this A short area.
This is such a great defensive play out of TSM. You see Wardell starting A long with two other players to sort of escort their LOS as they move up. And it looks like that's going to be rewarded if they don't clear this corner. MkaeL looking to get sprayed down.
My ultimate isn't.
I honestly think that exchange favors Gen.G there. There's a couple of trades, but the fact that the ambush only netted 2 for 2, an even trade, I think really benefits Gen.G. That could have been significantly worse, but there's Wardell lying in wait and misses with the daggers. Up close, takes that right click kind of shotgun approach and unfortunately just whiffed. So early pick but answered, and now we're on a 2v2 scenario as TSM has to come in for this retake.
It's those kind of minor slip-ups that Gen.G needs to see right now to be able to take a little bit of ground back. We're obviously looking at a 4-0 scoreline right now. Gen.G really having trouble finding momentum. And moments like that, where Wardell has a point-blank right-click and just can't seem to connect with it, Gen.G will take all of those that they can get.
And Effys backed up, got the res, and then also got a pick. I thought it was looking their favor, but Hazed with the double almost got a clutch here. Effys with the 3K at the end, punishing him. And so Gen.G does take their first round away from TSM as they try to build some momentum and get back in this.
Yeah, it's great to see Gen.G finally making it onto the board, but they're far from out of the woods. TSM still in great condition economically, still seeing Wardell on that operator. They're not going to have an easy time even picking up one additional round off of the momentum of that.
Yeah, that first one was just kind of to bring them to par in many ways economically, because TSM, with the big lead, had built up a war chest, as you said. They have full buys yet again, and even on the side of Gen.G, despite winning the round, one player ultimately had to take small shields, and a flurry of action here going on in mid, but Subroza with a pair of kills is again going to tip things way in favor of TSM. It's now a 4-on-2 scenario, and the spike is down mid where neither of the Gen.G players are nearby. Huynh here with this pick on Wardell, though, might give them the opportunity to slide in. You have to wonder whether or not the play here is to actually go for the spike or just save, because your economy is kind of wrecked. And these two ARs represent an awful lot of credits here, and it's still a numbers disadvantage and you don't have the spike.
It's a tricky call. I think they're approaching it the right way, sort of playing it out slow, looking to have someone walk into them rather than walk into the spike. Of course, as I say that, we see Huynh pushing towards mid, and he gets the pick onto Hazed. This gives Gen.G quite a bit more favorable a situation, although the clock's rapidly ticking down. Huynh popping off, but Subroza answers with the 2 spray, 4K on the round, dashing any hope Gen.G had there. That'll put their econ in disastrous shape.
Yeah, that was not what you were looking for on the side of Gen.G. And again, that's why I was saying potentially the thought there is save, because you are brutal in terms of the amount of credits that you have, but Now they have to try to do this with pistols. I don't see how Gen.G claws back into this at this point, because you've already given up this 5-1 lead. Let's be honest, this is very likely to go to 6-1. And then at that point, every win that TSM racks up afterwards is going to be a plus differential at the half.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because, like I said yesterday, we saw an 8-round offensive side
Enemy
from
kill.
Gen.G, and they haven't picked up more than a single one thus far. What's changed?
Get
You
out of my
see
way.
such a dramatic swing in their level of success one day to the next, and it's just so perplexing.
And this is, again, Wardell with a triple kill, 2 kills with that operator, then picks one up with the classic to clean things up. And you ask what changed? Well, it's been a 24 hours, right? So TSM has had a chance to think about what went wrong potentially, or what they needed to clean up. And then, as I said before, I honestly think TSM is hungry. They do not feel good about that loss they just gave away to Sentinels, and I think they want to get back to that. So I don't know how Gen.G claws their way back into this. They do get a full buy now for the most part. Huynh here with the operator does have the small shields. Very excited to see if they can attempt to use that accurately on offense, maybe counter frag Wardell, but that's a tall task.
Yeah, I think Huynh finally getting the operator here is pivotal for Gen.G, but and there we go. Pays off immediately as he sees the quick pick onto sub, and I think that will be where Gen.G finds their momentum, if any, is they need Huynh to start popping off. They need Huynh to par what Wardell is bringing to the table, and obviously that's a really tall order, but it's something that they need at this point.
You can see Wardell here looking for the pick, does find it. The Phoenix wall let him know that somebody was home, and he just needed to find him. With the flick coming back, finds another pick on player 1. That's 3, picking up one against Huynh as well. Excuse me, Huynh. I keep mispronouncing that because I have my horrible American Midwest accent. I apologize. It's not any disrespect to you, sir, but Wardell evened this out. Despite the early first blood, brought TSM back into this. GM does finally pick off Wardell, and now we're on a 2v2, so evened things up there with that flurry of action.
You say you don't mean any disrespect to Huynh, but Wardell definitely meant disrespect to him there. Tailwinding directly at him and picking up the 3K. Quite the ego peak, but it goes mostly unpunished.
Yeah, I really think that TSM is feeling it, and they want to get back. This is a great pickup by Cutler, but it's answered back by GMD, who finishes Cutler off. And that's going to be a 4K for him and a round win for Gen.G when it's all said and done. And this is the window of opportunity I think they needed. They need to close this gap. They have to win 4 in a row if they want to get to that 6-6 mark. But even if they can make this a 7-5 despite the slow start, I think that's a victory for them.
And there we see that play one more time. The pure disrespect of the forward tailwind out of Wardell. The side strafe mid-air to try and juke the shot. Oh my goodness gracious.
And we're going to see Gen.G again kind of spread out here. This default start. The spike is on the ground as they look for picks. And nobody's finding anything quite yet. A little bit of utility used here or there as they try to get information. But it does ultimately look like Gen.G might be making their first D push here as their players are kind of coalescing over in that C-long position. This is traditionally a pretty dangerous peak against a team with an operator, but we can see with our caster vision, nobody is home right now on Site C. So this actually might be an uncontested take for the most part. Even more so now that GMD gets the swing on Hazed. So they're going to be filing into C.
Yeah, we don't know if Gen.G is playing based off of this or if we're just biased because we have map hack, but Wardell has been playing towards A at the start of every single round. Gen.G has encountered him there every single time, so it's known information. I don't know if this was an adaptation to that or not, but we see it find a great deal of success as they've already found a plant here and have man advantage.
I think it's a little bit of the read on their play, but also at the start of this round, there was one operator shot fired. That kind of gives away the location, so they might be thinking that's a long way for him to walk. And this was a great push so far by Gen.G. They have this spike down, and there's not going to be enough time to defuse. Wardell does get an exit frag just to kind of damage the economy of Gen.G as they try to get back in this, but this is the momentum they were looking for. They've strung a couple in a row now. It's 6-3.
Yeah, Gen.G finding themselves a little bit here, but it's not the kind of momentum that we really want them to have behind so that they can par this up. We see situations where, yeah, they're stringing together rounds, but at what cost? They're still on an incredibly shaky economy because they haven't taken a round without losing the majority of their team in the process.
Yeah, when you've got the skill that these two teams have, it's very difficult to find those rounds where you have a flawless or even 4-3 people alive, and that is taking its toll economically. And because of the big lead TSM had built up, for the most part, they've been pretty comfortable with their economy even after the losses. Hazed here with an early pick on player 1 is going to give an advantage to TSM. Again, those first bloods, very important, because in Valorant, you don't ever want to take a fair fight unless you absolutely have to. And the call from Gen.G is now to rotate to A, but we have Cutler up in heaven, and Wardell is also there to mix things up a bit. They are on the site, but the spike has not been planted yet, and now it's down because Cutler finds Huynh.
Yeah, we're dealing with a situation here where, unfortunately, Cutler on Cypher pixels away from being able to find the wall bang there, and it cedes the site to Gen.G.
This is a Hunter's Fury that's just trying to slow down the spike plant again, and instead it's going to result in the spike carrier getting killed, being pushed out of position by the Hunter's Fury, meant Cutler could pick that up. Wardell catching people peeking through this very interesting angle because you're back a ways, but you can still see much more of site A than you would think when you're back there. So nice pickup from him, and it's just one player left on Gen.G. This is GMD with the spike in a dream, and Subroza turns it into a nightmare.
Yeah, TSM not letting off the gas. I think you're absolutely correct, where I would much rather play TSM coming off a couple wins than play them coming off of a loss, because they as a team are proving just how hungry they are to win this tournament.
Yeah, TSM knows, I think, that right now there's a bit of a fight, a bit of a kerfuffle, if you will, at the top of the NA rankings for Valorant teams, right? Sentinels are making their case. They've been very consistent. TSM is obviously won events. T1, when they decide to participate, can be very effective. And I think that TSM wants another crack at Sentinels because ultimately what most people care about are tournament wins. And it would almost in many ways erase their loss to them earlier because they won the one that matters, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. The run back in a winner bracket grand final situation is always going to be the kind of decider that these hungry players thrive on. So I'm sure that TSM is almost not even looking at that, or at this match rather, so much as they're looking at the next and see this as a formality that they just need to rush through, and rushing through it is exactly what they're doing.
And this is going to be another win for TSM as they extend this lead. And we're going into the last round before the swap. And, you know, you don't really like to say must win, but Gen.G is pretty much approaching that at this point. You do not want to go into this down 9-3 after the half. So I'd like to see them pick this up. It's a full buy of Phantoms and, scratch that. Going to be one Guardian so that they can get the armor. But it's still also full buys from the opposing squad, and now with 2 operators, maybe 3. It does look like TSM's going to go with the 3 operator setup. You do not want to peek any of these angles if you are Gen.G at this point. And Cutler does find MkaeL on the other side of the map there with an operator. This is going to be kind of heartbreaking, where every time you peek an angle, there's an op shot. And Wardell says, hey, there's one over here in the garage. Don't come in this direction. And things are falling apart for Gen.G right now.
This is when we get the hashtag op abusers in the chat, something along those lines. TSM making use of their resources in a dramatic fashion, knowing that they just have an absurd economic advantage, toying with Gen.G a bit here, and that'll force them to a 9-3 half.
Well, we know that TSM is comfortable on Haven, so this isn't necessarily a surprise in that they're ahead, but after the way that Gen.G performed against them on attack yesterday, to see this 9-3 result at the half is a bit surprising. What does Gen.G have to do now to turn things around?
That Gen.G's composition in general is going to be stronger on defense, but I think it's less a question of what Gen.G can do and more a question of what TSM does. Because yesterday, while Gen.G had an incredibly effective offensive half, taking up 8 rounds, they didn't pick up a single one on defense. And that wasn't because they necessarily did anything wrong. It's because TSM's rotations were absolutely godlike. If we see that level of rotational play out of them here, I don't know there's much Gen.G can do to claw back into this map.
Take flight.
Well, it's going to start with this pistol round, and they would like to win this so that they can maybe snowball that economically into another victory and start whittling away at that big lead that TSM mounted. But right now, it's an effortless walk in on B, but they're not going to plant there. They want to take one of these side sites, and they're going to take this kind of 5-man flanking rush onto site A. And Wardell does find a kill with the shorty. Subroza also picking up Effys, and so this is going to be an easy plant for them. And now it's a 3v5 retake scenario. Again, not looking great for Gen.G.
An absolutely absurd rotational play. I know I'm a nerd here, and not a lot of people are going to appreciate that, but TSM really just walked up mid, didn't force a plant B despite the fact they had full site control, instead fast flank through connector and take heaven? I mean, come on, this is the kind of reason why Gen.G can't find success on defense on this map. Who kind of play?
I really like the decision making from TSM to not plant B there, because if you don't see anybody B, if you walk up B and nobody's home, you know they're on the sides. Yes, you can plant, but at that point, you're kind of inviting them to surround you, close in from all directions. So taking that information and saying, if we go to one of the sides, we know they're split up. We've got a huge numbers advantage wherever we go. We can win the fight, get in post-plant positions. Just overall, I love that decision by them.
Absolutely phenomenal. It's a testament to the game sense that is accumulated in TSM's roster, how long these guys have been playing together, that they can make those kinds of plays and just show off.
And this is going to be them walking into Site C. There is a trade frag there. Effys with the judge picks one off before what answers. However, that's a long rotation coming all the way from Site A for Gen.G, and if TSM plants this, yes, they do. They will have a bit of a angles advantage, if you will, here as they set up. It is even in terms of numbers. It's 3v3 for this retake, but TSM gets to pick their spots in camp, and it looks like they planted for long. Hazed does find MkaeL as he comes from the defending side, and also gets GMD. So TSM really... Honestly, they're just making this look easy at this point. It's already 11-3. They're 2 wins away from closing out this first map, and they're doing so in impressive fashion.
If we see another shutout defense for Gen.G, I don't know how you mentally recover from that. I know that I was the only one on the desk to predict a 2-1, but it's looking pretty bleak.
Yeah, and the problem is you go to Ascent after this, and I know that Gen.G is pretty confident on Ascent, but the reality is TSM's no slouch either. I believe they're sporting something close to like an 80% win rate on Ascent themselves. So them being up and still being hungry, and then you're a bit demoralized on the side of Gen.G, that's going to be a really tough Ascent to make, pun intended, if they lose this here. And Effys, not sure if he wanted to ride the wall up or not, but kind of got clipped by the building. That does sometimes happen on stage. But Subroza here, the minute that the wall goes down, he curveballs, enters, he gets a kill. Hazed looked to the other direction, got a kill as well, and again, easy entry. This will be a plant, numbers advantage. You have to assume this is yet another win for TSM. I don't know what Gen.G can even change defensively.
Yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, I don't know that Gen.G has a lot of ways back into this. TSM is just, frankly, completely out-finessing it when it comes to rotational play, and you're almost out of options. How do you even counter this? I think that they almost have to outright stuff TSM's forces with things like the Sage Wall, but then be prepared for the inevitable recommit that we've seen out of TSM now more than a few rounds in a row.
Oh, you ain't coming back.
Subroza here does get this pick. But again, this is ultimately still going to be TSM taking it to match point. So this is 12-3. This is going lightning fast. This first map is almost over in the blink of an eye. And we're going to see essentially full buys from the side of TSM going into this. I say essentially because Hazed still has this Bulldog that he's going to hold on to. Not a real reason to buy up from there. And because of the losses, because of the economy, unfortunately, Gen.G half buys. You got SMGs, you got GMD opting to go with the AR but no shields. But you have to do this. You have to buy up and spend your credits because it's match point.
Yeah, at this point, if you're Gen.G, you almost have to start thinking about the next map, reset your morale a little bit, and think to the next game. TSM quite literally speed running them here. And it doesn't look like that's about to change, although we do see player one getting a pick onto Subroza over towards C.
And we see Drone trying to peek here, get this information to see whether or not A is as empty as it appears. But it is actually not. There are some quiet waiting folks here. So it's a bit of a standoff. Now the other players for TSM have not rotated over towards A yet. So I think again, they're just like waiting for this information. That's gonna tip them that somebody's there because of the jump in the placement from MkaeL here. And this is the calm before the storm, because now we see TSM is rotating over. Similarly, Gen.G kind of rotating to maybe catch a flank. We see the Sage coming up the backside of A. Drone enters and finds a frag. Cutler gets a kill as well. Drone with a second. And this is going to be a spike plant. And a tale as old as time. It's a numbers advantage in favor of TSM in these post-plant positions. Cutler here lying in wait. Wardell covering the other side, so entry is just not going to be allowed from Effys, and this is it. TSM 13-3 against Gen.G.